you state your name, just for the...
Timothy P. Kohler, Esquire.
So, what profession do you work in?
I'm an attorney.
Or what led you to want to become an attorney?
I am a late-in-life attorney.
Mm.
I spent my first career in the military. I served 12 years in the Navy. I was medically discharged in 2011, but it was my time in the service that got me thinking about a career in law. When I was in high school, I was not the best student. I was a solid C to C minus student, so I was shooting for the stars at that point. I was dubbed by my guidance counselor as unlikely to complete a 2-year degree program, let alone a 4-year degree program. I would probably never get into a school, and that, you know, me and my parents should just face the facts. So before I graduated, I had gotten in with the fire department, and they had started a program through University of Maryland for an associate's in fire science, and I qualified and I got in. So I was actually taking classes at University of Maryland before I ever graduated high school, and so I sort of found a love there, and I realized very quickly that without an education and without something else, there was no way you were going to get hired into a public sector job like the fire service, which is what I wanted at the time. So I joined the Navy. I actually screened for all 5 service branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and I chose the Navy. I went in September of '99. I took my senior summer, enjoyed my senior summer, and September rolled around, and I went and did went to boot camp. I shipped. I graduated boot in November, end of November. I went on to A school. I was rated as a damage controlman. And I went to my first ship. I was on the USS Trenton, which is an old LPD, which is a 35, well, it's not, I think it belongs to India now. We sold it. Really old ship, though. It was a great place for me to learn my rate on. I advanced quickly. I had done 4 years in JROTC and that kind of thing. And it was my experiences in the military that led me in the direction of actually going to law school. I had a division officer on my second ship who really encouraged us to take classes. The Navy had just come out with a new tuition assistance program, which didn't eat into your MGIB. And so I said, you know, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of that since I've got a DIVO that's going to support that. So I started taking classes little bit by little bit. I had a lot of credits from University of Maryland already built up. I had a lot of smarts credits from, you know, school, A school, boot camp, and that kind of thing. I walked into my bachelor's program, and I was about 45 credits in. It took me about 3 years part-time doing classes here and there when I could get them in during deployment. My third tour, I was in Navy Special Warfare. I was part of Special Boat Team, and so when we were deployed, as long as we were in base camp, you know, in Bahrain, I was actually taking CLEPs and courses and things like that, and really knuckling on education. And when I was gone, I was doing all my stuff via distance. One of the last classes I did when I was at that assignment was called Fire and Emergency Law, and the professor really kind of made it interesting. Like, it really piqued my interest because conflicts like that really always resonated with me. So I got into it and really did well with the class. And shortly after I graduated, I enrolled. The school I was at had just started a master's program in American Legal Studies. So I enrolled and I started to go. And my first 2 courses, my professor in my writing course called me up and she said, listen, you need to blow off this master's and go to law school. You've got a knack for it, you know. You got a talent for the law part. You got to work on your writing, but you got a talent for the law. You need to blow it off, go to law school. So I started thinking about it, and this is shortly after I left boat team. I was on shore duty, and I had several surgeries and things. I had come back. I had done two combat tours in Global War on Terror. Had to have some surgeries and things like that, and the Navy was in the process of downsizing. So I had been talking to my wife. Said I think I'm going to go to law school. Started applying to law schools. Hadn't made a decision on how I wanted to do that. And so when I finally got basically my re-enlistment package went up for the last time. They denied it. And I told my wife, I said, well, I think this is, the Almighty telling me something here. This is, I'm in the wrong place. I need to be doing, something different. So I took that as my sign to go to school. So August of 2011, I started at Regent University School of Law. Did my 3 years there. It was I like difficult things, so it was sort of like academic hell week. They sort of mentally torture you to get you thinking like an attorney, but there's a purpose behind it.
Absolutely.
And my experiences in the military, again, like I said, kind of drove me in that direction, not just from the academic sense, but I experienced a lot of things in the military that pushed me in that direction. My last tour, I was the director for the sexual assault prevention and response program for Naval Station Norfolk. I actually rebuilt the program. It had basically fallen into extreme disrepair. We had no advocates, we had no POCs, we had no reporters, we didn't have anybody that we needed to do our function, and it was DoD mandated. So I basically rebuilt that program. That was something that usually you had an E7 or an E8 that was doing. I was an E6, I was doing it. I actually sort of pushed my E7 out of the way because she wasn't doing anything with it. Rebuilt the program, but having gone through those, working with victims, it kind of got me seeing something a little bit differently, and having learned a little bit in my master's program about it, I started seeing how flawed the criminal justice system was as far as victims were concerned, and began to realize that their redress isn't civil. So I started thinking that's what I want to do is civil. And then when I started working here as an intern, it pushed me in other directions. But it was that part of that experience is what got me in that direction. The other thing was the military is an inherently adversarial environment. It's a socially aggressive environment. It's sort of like a rat race in some things. In the younger years, the aggression is focused towards getting you to do things a certain way, getting you basically in line to do your job and to do your job well and to maintain discipline. As you get more senior, it's about how can I step on this other guy to make myself look good. You'll see a lot of that in the middle management, we'll call it, the E5, E6 rank. Even into the E7s. But other things that I saw was, young guys that were having a hard time adjusting rather than, trying to work with them and bring them up to speed. You would have some leaders that did that. Others you would have what we call put the screws to them, which were you try to basically force them out. We had incidents. One of the judicial or non-judicial processes in the military is an Article 15, which would be a non-judicial punishment. Where you have a captain, a commanding officer, who is not an attorney, has never had any legal training for the most part, who is adjudicating basically what would be amount to misdemeanors, and guys were losing their careers over it, and allowing evidence that was either irrelevant or inadmissible, to affect these decisions. And so part of my practice now is I do our federal military practice. I do NJP, non-judicial punishments. I just won an appeal on one of them, and I do court-martials, and private counsel for court-martials, because a lot of times if you're a soldier or a sailor or an airman or a Marine, you get in trouble, you go to court-martial, they're going to appoint you some fledgling attorney out of the defense shop who's not tried a case, but probably never even seen a case. So that's part of why I do that area of practice. So what pushed me in my chosen profession, I guess you could say, was a lot of world experience, worldview changes, and things like that. I saw a lot of socially diverse interaction between people, because the military is a huge melding pot. You've got people from all walks of life, all over the world, not just all over the country, but all over the world, coming together and thrown into one place and being expected to work together. So it was a very eye-opening experience, and it was something that helped me to develop, the way I saw things. I saw how men and women interacted in a very sexually hostile environment. The military in and of itself, and has always been a very masculine and charged environment, which women tend to not fit very well into. Results in a lot of conflicts and other things. and I've seen a lot of abuses on both ends. So a lot of that was not just, it wasn't just to be I guess it wasn't my decision to become an attorney was not just as a social engineering kind of thing. It was more or less to kind of preserve some of our morality and status quo, if you will, the way things have worked. No need to mess with them. So I guess you could say what most compelled me to go into the practice of law was, my desire to, first of all, be a voice for people who are otherwise being silenced, and second of all, to make sure that everyone's rights are protected. We all have rights, inherent rights, endowed, and then we need to make sure that those are kept and protected.
Where's my mom at?
So please excuse my slight interruption. So that being said, it was always a question for me of, does everyone have inherent rights? If they do, who's going to be there to be the voice for them? Because you have rights, I have rights, but I'd say 90% of the population doesn't know how to stand up for them, doesn't know how to assert them properly, or they infringe other rights by trying to do so. So anyway, it was my experiences, I guess you could say, my life experiences in the military that kind of pushed me in this direction.
Looking at yourself back when you were in high school, would you have ever seen yourself coming to achieve everything you've achieved in your lifespan?
Would I have seen it? My mom did. I should have listened to her earlier on. My life took a definite course change about 5 years ago. So would I have seen it at this point? If you would have asked me in high school, would I be here at some point, I'd have told you you're crazy. Because my academic prowess was not there. I just was not. I did not have much in the way of desire to learn. I was a doer. I'm still a doer in many ways. As a matter of fact, I like to teach that way. I teach at Mid-Atlantic Christian University, and I try to make my lessons extremely practical because, frankly, sitting around being lectured about theory is boring. I want to show and I want to see practical application for what you do, for what you learn. So that was one of the draws to the military, was that I would actually get to do something.
So at this point in your life, would you say that practicing law is your bliss?
My bliss?
Yeah, does
my
it make
calling.
you happy?
Would I want to do anything else? No. I mean, apart from being a parent and a father, a father and a husband, and the few things that I enjoy in my leisure time, which is very slim, but the needs of others tend to take over my own personal needs a lot of times. But no, I couldn't really see myself doing anything else. I love what I do, and it was one of those things, like I said, about 5 years ago. It was like a wake up call. This is what you should be doing, and I've been a happier man for it. I was extremely frustrated with the environment of the military. The military in and of itself is an enormous social experiment. I'm very much, very conservative to the nth degree, meaning, leave me alone. And so they kind of like to, push these social projects on you, and that just wasn't sitting well with me. I had this conversation with one of my former commanders, a friend of mine that I knew when I was in active duty last week. Just not something that made me happy. I knew there was time for a change, and even when times were good, I wasn't actually making pretty good money. Supporting my family pretty easily, and the only downside was I was having to leave all the time, and dealing with some of the people was a little obnoxious sometimes. But in the long run, I'm glad I am where I am. And I couldn't be here without my service, and I don't regret my service in any way, shape, or form. It was probably one of the best periods of my life. It did the most to bring me around to what I should have been doing. So, I'd say that being the case, I guess, I don't know how best to answer your question. Is it give me bliss? I guess bliss can be found when you have that one client who's facing annihilation, and you snatch him out